back to my channel. My name is Julia. So as many of you guys may know, I have started my own clothing brand, Stockholm, and I've received plenty of requests on sharing the process of how I started from scratch to the actual launch. So for this video, I'm gonna break it down for you guys. So starting a business can be quite scary, but at the same time, very motivational. It's really exciting to create something that's truly your own, but sometimes it can be a bit difficult to know where to start. So I had a bit of an advantage because I studied industrial engineering and management, so I knew a bit of the industrial processes and the management part of creating a business, and I've also had my own company for a long time, so I was already acquainted with a lot of things that I'm gonna talk about in this video. But for those of you that aren't acquainted with business related topics, Skillshare is a great online community for creators that have over 25,000 classes where you can learn about business, management, and design, all topics that could be related to a business or a hobby that you're interested in. So a class I'd recommend is E-commerce Essentials: How to Start a Successful Online Business by Tracy Wallace, and it's really short and informative, which is perfect if you have a busy schedule, and I would definitely recommend this as they are really affordable in comparison to other classes for learning. So I'm partnering with Skillshare for this video, and they're giving away 2 months of free unlimited access to all their classes, link in the description below, and after that it's only $10 a month. So to start your own business, I broke it down to 5 steps. Personally, I thought that the most important things was to figure out a brand name, which was so difficult, and figuring out my core values, what I want my brand to stand for, my visual identity, and lastly, I had to figure out my supply chain. So that was everything from planning to production to the actual launch and everything in between. So you just have to figure out these steps by brainstorming, discuss your ideas with friends, your family, maybe look at other brands that you like, that you feel would be able to represent what you stand for. So for my own clothing brand, I wanted it to be ethical and sustainable. That's what put the focus into my brand and how I further wanted to work when I started sourcing and planning the rest of my production. Another really important thing when you start your own business is that if you're planning on making this a long-term business, you have to consider trademarking your brand. This is something that I learned quite late in the process that I never had thought about. But if you actually want to own your brand, you need to trademark it. And the trademarking process can be quite difficult because there's a lot of legal terms that I wasn't acquainted with, but you just have to put yourself through it and learn along the way. But it's different for every country. So in Sweden, we have Patent- och registreringsverket, and for Europe, there's UIPO, but I'm not sure how it is in the States or in Asia, depending on where you're planning on basing your business, or if it's international, you might have to consider trademarking it in different areas of the world. It can be quite expensive, but this is only to protect your brand. In case if someone would copy your work, you would have no rights to claim that you own the brand. Just because you own the domain doesn't mean that you own the actual brand name. So have that in consideration when you start your brand. Step 2 is research and development. This step can take months and will lay out the entire base of your business. It's super important to know what you're getting into and learn about the industry as it is now. So for the fashion industry, there were a few things I had to have in consideration: design, sourcing, sampling, and manufacturing. So for the design, well, obviously you have to design your clothing or whatever product you want to create, and you don't need to have any education or fashion background or anything. Anyone can design, and you can do it on paper, you can do it on Photoshop or Illustrator. That's how I started out. There are plenty of tutorials, so don't be caught up on which program you're gonna use. Don't worry about the minor things such as pattern making or sampling, because you will be able to find people that will do it for you, especially in the factory if you found one. And then we have sourcing. It's the foundation for your design, finding the fabrics that you're gonna use, the packaging that you're gonna ship it in, and also tags. There are plenty of tags that you have to consider when you're making a garment. There's a wash tag, the brand tag, the paper tag, and size tags. So many things that I never thought of when I started. Making decisions is key for this entire process because you're gonna have so many options. Personally, I wanted to source myself, so I flew out to Vietnam. Right now we're at the market where you can buy dead stock fabrics. This is where we've sourced all our fabrics for DJI Stockholm. It's quite difficult when you're sourcing dead stock because it's not guaranteed that the fabric will be there all the time. So let's say you find a fabric that you like, make a sample out of it, and then you come back to purchase the entire roll. It may be out. It's kind of like thrifting. Like when you find that fabric you really like, you just have to grab it before anyone else does. Okay, so this is the process of sampling fabrics and try to find something that matches our standards. You usually find branded stuff that's probably just left over from a production. Like we saw some Puma zippers over there. I think we've been here every week, at least once or twice, every time we're here, because it does take a lot of time to source fabrics. So it's getting really hot. I'm sweating. If you don't do it as myself, there's always companies that have samples ready and you can order a sample box if that's the way you want to go. Personally, I wanted to go a more sustainable way, so I went and found dead stock fabrics, but there are other ways to be sustainable when you source fabrics. For the packaging, you also have to find what design you want for the packaging, if you even want a design, and there are boxes, bags, poly bags, eco mailers. There's a huge variety and it's all about decisions, as I said. So just try to figure out what you personally like, and I liked receiving things in a box that felt more nice in my opinion. So I just tried to reflect on what I like when I receive a package and implement that into my brand. The next step, of course, after sourcing your fabrics is to find a sample maker. Unless you can make your samples on your own, which is great, I wish I could, but finding a sample maker that you can trust and understands your vision is extremely key. Most cases you can find that through the factory that you are working with or have found. Other cases, contact design students, like upcoming designers. Don't be afraid to ask around. Like when I was in Vietnam, I asked my friends, cousin's friend of a friend. It was so far-fetched, but I finally found a sample maker that I really liked. So don't be afraid to ask around. And of course, for the manufacturing in itself, you obviously have to find a factory first, but this can be quite gruesome and there's a lot of things to consider, and also what scale of production you're looking for, because most big factories won't accept small startups. So if that's the scale you're going at, you have to be a bit more local when you are looking for factories. But how I found my factories was partly through Googling. You can look at factories that other brands are using, because most established brands are quite transparent nowadays. So they have all the information on the factories already on their website. So that's a great way to start. But then again, if you find connections in, for example, Vietnam, as I did, they already had their own factories that they were working with. So building connections is really important if you want to find good factories, because there's a lot to choose from and you also have to test them out. You have to make samples there and you have to quality check everything and make sure that it suits your expectations and the quality that you are looking for. But I felt that it was really important for me to actually visit the factories that I'm using to know 100% that I can trust these factories and the people that are working there. So if you have the possibility to actually visit your factories, I would definitely recommend that. And it's a great learning experience to know how the industry works. Don't be afraid to fly out to whatever country you want to produce your items in, because it will only make your business much easier to sustain. Step 3 is logistics and distribution. I was really unfamiliar with this part, but as a startup, I ended up doing it on my own. So I handle all the distribution and logistics myself. But if that isn't suitable for you, you can always outsource it to a logistics facility, which will handle all your shipping and returns for you. But I felt that in the start, it was really important for me to be able to control what is coming in and out, but also knowing how the orders are processed. And for the distribution in itself, I had to compare multiple logistics companies such as DHL, FedEx, DB Schenker, just to figure out which company had the best offers and shipping prices, because shipping is expensive. Number 4, sales channels. You need to have a platform where you are gonna sell your products. It could be Instagram, which a lot of people have nowadays. There's Shopify, BigCartel, WooCommerce. There's so much to choose from. I eventually went with Shopify, which I found was the most efficient for me, but there's so much you can do with a website, and you have to make sure to design it as well, which can be really time consuming, because if you've seen my website, we had to code a lot of things ourselves. I'm that bitch that wants to do things on her own. But if you're not that tech savvy, maybe you want to hire someone that will do it for you, or use whatever templates that are already there on Shopify, because they have a lot of tools and you can already edit a lot of things with Shopify. And before you start selling your products, you of course need to shoot the products and have a marketing plan so that people will actually know about your products. And this can be done in multiple ways. You have Instagram, like social media marketing, Facebook ads, Google ads, sponsored posts. There's so many ways to do marketing nowadays, and I'm sure you guys haven't missed out on any of them. Also, the more boring stuff such as policies, the accounting and taxes, and that is different for every country. But if you don't know anything about accounting and taxes and all those legal things that are the most boring part, in my opinion, when you start a business, do learn about it, take a course. I'm sure that your tax office in your country have a lot of information for new business owners, but it's really important so that you don't end up being fined for tax fraud or whatever, but make sure to look that up. And step 5, launch. So now I guess you have all the tools you need to actually start your business, and this is really brief. I could go so in depth with all these topics, and I really hope you guys found this helpful, but this is just my personal experience, and if you have any questions, do let me know in the comments and I will try to answer them as good as possible. Good luck with starting your businesses if that's what you're doing, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!